Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. We're glad you're here with us today. We are here with Liz Miller-Lee, and she is the Director of Online Learning at ISTE, which stands for the International Society of Technology in Education. She leads ISTE University, ISTE's online professional development initiative, and it helps educators build confidence in working with technology, tools, and strategies. Prior to that, she had experience in ed tech and product management, instructional design, and teaching. She holds a master's degree in technology, innovation, and education from Harvard, and she's passionate about transforming K-12 education through technology to promote student equity and success. And Liz, there's no time like the present to do that. But before we begin, I want to thank you for the work that you do with ISTE. The ISTE conference is always a highlight in my school year. I think that it is like the epitome of the best conference. I look forward to it every year. It's almost like a family reunion. I look forward to seeing people that I keep in contact with all year. It really, I can say personally, it propelled me to the next level and helped me learn so many things. It is the ultimate conference, and ISTE it's much more than a conference, and you're leading so much of the professional development and helping people grow. And I really send kudos to ISTE for all you do for educators. You're just wonderful. I know Jamie's dying to add in a little something about ISTE right now too. So go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, no, it is. It's just a great, the conference itself, of course, brings everyone together. And of course, keeps us on our toes, something always new, something always to find out about. But also throughout the year, we have so many different opportunities for professional development. So it's really amazing. And we're excited to hear more about it from you today, all of your endeavors.
Yes, absolutely. And I know ISTE is so integral in technology and supporting teachers. And right now, more than ever, teachers are needing the support with the online learning. Right. And I hear from teachers, administrators, parents, that they're all really struggling right now with some of the remote learning and the blended learning environments out there. I know, Liz, you're an expert in this area. What would your top 3 recommendations be for people that are struggling in this area?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on this today. It's so great to hear about your all's experience with the ISTE conference. I think it echoes a lot of what our community feels. And we have been trying the past few years as an organization to take that magic and that excitement from the conference and really expand it to all year round and across the globe as much as possible. So part of that, obviously, with this unexpected, unprecedented event this year, was being thrown into remote learning. And we have been working with educators, from classroom teachers to superintendents, since the pandemic began, about where do we even start here? What are our steps? And there's no precedent. So it's really hard to find a starting point to know what works well. But the main thing to keep in mind is what we know works well, our knowledge of learning sciences and best practices in teaching. The same general rules apply to remote learning. There's just a couple things to keep in mind that are different that you might not think of when you're transitioning. So it's really hard to narrow it down to 3 tips, but I'll try. I'll do my best.
And you can add in more if you want.
I probably will.
You go for it.
So the first thing I'll recommend for teachers is to keep in mind the importance of classroom community. Often we jump straight to the instruction, and obviously that is essential. But we sometimes forget that learning is still a community-based experience. And so how can we create that sense of community in remote or blended learning environments? So a couple tips for teachers establish guidelines, community guidelines and communication guidelines for yourself so that you know, okay, I'm going to send out an email to the class every Monday. I'm going to check in every Wednesday, but also community guidelines that you come up with as a group together that students can kind of have input into. Yes. Also foster student collaboration as much as possible. We tend to kind of drift towards the hub and spoke model where the teacher's at the center and they might be interacting with every student, but keep in mind that students can learn just as much from each other as they can from you. And then bring in fun and personality as much as possible. We don't need to be robots just because we're communicating through technology. So part of that community building is anything as simple as bring in emojis and memes and bitmojis into your communication. And it seems small, but it makes a huge difference for how students are perceiving the learning environment that they're in.
Those are great tips. I know I follow Alan November, and he talks so much about making sure that the students are learning from each other, like even the breakout rooms, to what you were talking about, making sure that they're collaborating and teachers can listen in and hear what students, how they're learning and how they're explaining to others. So it's so important that we just take what we're doing, and Jamie gives teachers such good tips on that as well. So yeah, very important.
I'm so glad that you kind of validated for me what I've been trying to share with teachers. My fear with the pandemic was that we were going to go back into the dark ages of teaching, right? And kind of throw out best practices. But instead, we need to leverage those best practices and sort of rethink how we can still keep them embedded, with again, not the sage on the stage, right? But instead the guide on the side. How can we still implement cooperative learning and small group instruction, all of those best practices that we've been learning about and working so hard? How can we still do that when we're working through Zoom or we have to have kids in rows? We can still work through it, and technology is there to support us to do it.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's our, again, still the focus should be on the curriculum, instruction, and social emotional learning, right? But then how are we going to leverage those best practices as well as the technology tools to make it all happen and keep those kids engaged with each other? Because just as you said, it really makes me so worried for students to be in remote learning scenarios or even having to be in rows. They don't have to have the feeling of remoteness. And so we need to keep our best practices going, and just, it's challenging. It's so challenging for teachers. So I get it. And, but I think the more we involve the students, the easier it is on the teachers, because it kind of takes some of that focus on them as being the leader, right, off of them, and giving some responsibility to the students. So many different benefits to that.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
PD is another thing that has to be transformed in this, right? So what are some of the things of the rethinking that's been going on in the ISTE land in order to support teachers? Because, a lot of the things that you've done, actually, some of it was online anyways, but so that's kind of like a nice thing. But what are some of the things you've had to do, and what are some of the exciting things ahead for PD?
Yeah, absolutely. So we launched a couple online and blended PD programs a couple years back, actually, again, to kind of take that excitement from the conference and spread it out as much as possible to as many people as possible. So when we launched ISTE U, our online courses for PD, we were focusing on a couple things. We didn't want it to be a sit and get experience where you're simply clicking through, what we call a nexter. Okay, next page, next page, next page. Right. It needs to be engaging. It needs to be have opportunities for interaction with other learners or your own colleagues if you're, taking the course together. And it needs to have direct application to your role. So you need to come out of the course. Our kind of theory with our online PD is you need to come out of every course with at least one tool or template or strategy that you can or have even already applied in your classroom or in whatever role you're in. If you're in more of a PD, colleague facing role, then we make it possible to tailor whatever, capstone assignment you're working on to your audience and your role. But you need to come out of there with something concrete that you can apply and reflect on how the application of that tool is going. A big factor with us, kind of keeping with the theme, is that sense of community. We build discussion boards and Padlets and all sorts of interactive tools into our online courses because, similar to what we want teachers to model with students, we don't want to be the hub and spoke model where each individual teacher is learning from ISTE or from the course that we've developed. So much of the learning, a huge portion of the learning, happens when the educators taking the courses are actually communicating with each other and reflecting with each other on best practices. And there's no way that one course could provide that on its own to everyone taking it.
Yeah. And I guess it models also what they should be doing in the classroom. So that's what I try to do with my PD. And when I do a face-to-face is try to keep, engaging to everything you just said, have them collaborating throughout, having a make and take, that they're actually developing something that they can put into the classroom. So it's really nice that you had already established this before the pandemic in a blended model. So now you can kind of just continue with that and enhance. So I think that's, fantastic.
A good example is that is when, when the pandemic hit and schools were closing down, we developed a new series of online learning opportunities specifically on teaching in online and blended environments. And I can talk a little bit more about those, but in terms of modeling, one topic we focus on is student agency and giving them choice and voice over the pace, path, time, and place at which they're learning. Yep. And so when we're teaching topics in our courses, we might provide a choice board about a certain topic, say accessibility, where you have the option to explore maybe 3 or 4 of the 9 options that we give there. And you don't have to explore everything, but it's on you to choose what is most valuable and most relevant to your learning. And that's just teaching the PD. That's a teacher-facing resource, but we hope that the teachers taking our courses will see how impactful that is for their learning and be able to model that with their students as well.
Right. And then with the choice board, if you want to go further and deeper, you could do all 9 if you wanted to.
Right.
If you found relevancy to you in that. And I like that opportunity. If you want to go further, you can. And speaking of going further, I have a few friends that have gone through the ISTE certification and have said, it's really tough, but it's really worth it. So I don't know a lot about the ISTE certification. Can you tell us what that's all about and why is it really worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the ISTE certification program was another PD program that we launched a couple years back to really push educators to the next level of how they're not only integrating technology and using technology in their classroom, but actually leveraging technology to catalyze active, high impact learning for their students. So it is a rigorous program, but it is designed to really be scaffolded so that any educator, who is excited to learn and motivated to learn and has a basic sense of technology can get a ton out of this. Okay. So how it works is you start with, historically it started with actually a 2-day face-to-face program, which we've now redesigned to be a fully online program that has both some synchronous sessions and some asynchronous learning that you do on your own in these online learning modules. Yeah. After you go through the actual learning, there is up to a 6 month period where you are building your portfolio. You're actually using everything you've learned from the program to create artifacts and actually implement them and reflect on them in your classroom or whatever role you're in as an educator. And you submit that portfolio for evaluation. And then once you're evaluated and you become an ISTE certified educator, you have access to this awesome community of other certified educators who are then sharing all their best practices, and there are challenges that we introduce that you can kind of work on together or independently, and it's a great community.
So it's for teachers.
Yeah, it's
for administrators.
It's definitely applicable to, if you're a tech coach or instructional coach, curriculum designer, even other admin positions have gone through the program. And it's so it's so able to be tailored to your role, because your portfolio is your portfolio. We don't say fill out these 5 templates and turn them in. The artifacts can be whatever are helpful to you in your role.
Because building leaders, I feel, really need to have a great grasp on all of the technology learning and what is good practice so that they can lead effectively. So I would love to see more building leaders getting involved in this as well. I think it would be helpful. Yes.
Definitely. Teachers need all the support that they can get. And the more that leaders understand what the needs are, not only in terms of tools and devices and connectivity, but also building the capacity of educators to leverage those tools.
So from start to finish, what is the time frame? I know the portfolio portion is 6 months, you said.
Yeah.
Is it I know there's synchronous, asynchronous. Is it self-paced, or do you have like a start and end? What does that look like?
So yeah, with the fully online program that we've launched a couple months ago and are actually launching a totally refreshed version this December based on all the data that we've collected and all the feedback we've gotten from participants. It's about like a 12-week start and end of the online learning part, where some of that is synchronous throughout. Like there are slight variations in how it's offered, but you might have a meeting once a week or more frequently or less frequently while you're also working through self-paced options. So yeah, about 12 weeks for that. And then you have up to 6 months to build your portfolio. So you can do it more quickly, or you might take the full 6 months.
Is there a cost to taking this?
Yes, there is a cost. It does vary. We work with partners to actually deliver the online instruction part. And so when you register, it's offered by ISTE, but you can register with one of our partners, and the cost might vary depending on kind of how they're building it into their general PD offerings.
I see.
Okay. All right. It's funny, I laughed when you said that you're doing a revamped version in December, because this is on my bucket list. I want to get ISTE certified. I'm currently completing an online program for my master's in instructional design, and I finish in December. So I thought, okay, I wanted a break, but maybe I'll just go for it and just keep on going. I'll have to see how my momentum.
Yeah. And one thing I want to note is that both the ISTE certification program and our ISTE U courses, which cover a whole range of topics from, online learning to AI and digital citizenship, and we have a librarian's course. Those are graduate level credit eligible through a partner of ours. So you can actually choose to get graduate credit if you're, working toward relicensure or a degree of some kind.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yes. Really.
So many different ways to leverage all of the offerings that you have. And it seems to really nicely fit into people's schedule and what they have going on in their lives. It seems to be tailored to that. So that's super important. I like that a lot.
I like the use of synchronous and asynchronous. I think that's the best.
Yeah, and with ISTE U, we've found over the years that a range of offerings is what we need, because there's so many different needs that a teacher might have. Some people want the full 30-hour, 12-week course where you're diving in really deeply. You have an instructor who's giving you feedback, actually grading your assignments and helping you work through. And some people want a really quick, I don't have a ton of time or a smaller budget to get my PD, or I want to kind of more pick and choose smaller incremental offerings to take. And so we've offered everything up from a 30-hour course down to a 2-hour self-paced course that you can take and earn a certificate of completion within 2 hours.
That's fabulous. Because honestly, it depends on the week, how I feel and what I need. So it's not like one person decides on how they best it is based on learning preferences, but it also depends on your world and what's going on. So
Right.
it's just so great that you have so many different options, and that's the goal, and that's what we want in the classroom as well. So it's modeling full circle. So I love it. So this will be my second year presenting at ISTE. Of course, this year looks much different. I was supposed to do another hands-on session. Well, no, I think this would have been my third. I don't remember, but I was supposed to do a hands-on session. Now it's a poster session. I was very worried about it, but recently got an email showing what the format is, and it's gorgeous. And it relieved me a bit, because I was a bit nervous about how it would translate, how I would be able to put this together. But it's all within my account within ISTE, right? That I developed this. I love it. Tell us about it and how you're pivoting and how all of these changes are going to take place for the ISTE conference coming up soon.
Yeah, it's coming up in just a little over a month, which is crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, obviously this was a huge pivot year for us. For those who aren't familiar with the ISTE conference, it's been going on for years, decades. And we have typically somewhere in the 15,000 to 20,000 attendees with exhibitors and a huge exhibitor hall and
people from all over the world.
Yeah.
All over the world. Yeah.
All over the world, all different roles, all different topic areas folks are interested in. But if you've been, you know how exciting it is to be there.
Yes.
And so a huge focus for us this year is to figure out how we can transform that into a digital experience, a fully digital experience that's immersive and interactive, and brings up that same excitement. So we've actually developed a fully custom online platform that you may have gotten a preview of if you're presenting, that is unlike any other digital conference that's going on, because we've been able to build it to exactly what we know our community and our conference attendees need. There will be both live content that you can join in on at any time, and on-demand content that you can access whenever you feel like jumping in. There's everything from small, intimate sessions, like maybe a poster session, where you can actually have, community discussion, to huge talks where you get to hear from some of the best thought leaders in the world. There's also, we were talking about the ability to engage with other attendees, and that's something we knew was important. So there's a ton of different ways you'll be able to connect with other attendees and even the presenters of the sessions. There's text and chat and video call capabilities built in. You can demo tools, actually hands-on. You can demo them yourself, not just watching a demo, but actually try them out, which is super exciting.
You mean like the presenters who are sharing tools, or do you mean the exhibitors, or is that two separate conversations?
Both presenters and exhibitors. If they're talking about a tool, then you would have the opportunity to actually try out that tool yourself. Yeah.
That's exciting, because one of my highlights was going onto the floor and seeing the exhibitors. I've been a judge for the last 3 years, and seeing all of the new tech tools and what's going on. And I love that part of ISTE. I always have one day that's just devoted to the floor. And so I was so interested as to how that's going to work. So I will be excited to see how you have done that. I'm just in amazement here, hearing about all of this. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, from what I've seen, still going to have that level of engagement as best possible. But it just does seem super interactive, super engaging. And I'm excited to see it all pulled together. Yeah.
There's another aspect of ISTE that I always like to spend time, and that was the ISTE bookstore. I love to go to the bookstore and kind of see what the hot topics are and what ISTE is promoting. Are there any resources you think our listeners would like to know about right now that ISTE thinks should be front and center?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we publish books year round, and at the conferences, a big chunk of how people learn about our different books and our different authors, and a lot of our book authors are presenting at the conference, which is exciting. A few that come to mind that might be particularly relevant for educators right now kind of our long-standing, best-selling book, which kind of sums up the whole theory of teaching that ISTE has, is called Learning First, Technology Second. It's a super important book now more than ever as we're focusing on, pedagogy first and what tools can support your instructional goals, as opposed to what tools are there out there and how can I incorporate them into my teaching. Yes. So that's one we'd recommend to anyone who is interested in kind of ISTE's expertise and ISTE's view on that topic. We had a new book published this year. It was just published in late spring, called The Perfect Blend. And it was extremely timely because obviously around that time is when educators were looking for guidance on how to do online and blended teaching, especially this fall when a lot of schools are doing different hybrid models and everything. And The Perfect Blend is an amazing walkthrough of all different strategies of some of what we've been talking about today: how to create community in online and blended environments, how to design instruction to reduce cognitive load, something that you wouldn't have necessarily had to think about in a face-to-face, but thinking about students, short-term working memory, anything from using consistent fonts, exactly chunking information, not just putting as much as possible into one place, leaving enough white space on whatever page you're displaying. That makes huge differences for students. And then it also goes into accessible design, which of course is valuable for students with special needs, and but it's also beneficial for all students in general. It kind of brings into best practices of how we should be designing instruction. So that's a super valuable resource. And the author of that book, Michelle Eden, is actually the author of some of our ISTE U courses as well that dive into those topics a little bit deeper.
If someone wanted to get those books, would they just go to the ISTE website?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're available on Amazon and a couple of different retailers as well. Okay. But yeah, The Perfect Blend and Learning First, Technology Second.
Do you happen to know the author of Learning First, Technology Second?
I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but you should be able to
we'll find it.
Google it and it'll definitely come up.
We'll find it, put it in the show notes.
Perfect.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's so many different resources that you've touched upon today, and we will make sure that they are available in the show notes. The only way that our podcast is about breaking boundaries in education, and the only way that teachers are able to do that in the classroom and school leaders are able to do that for their schools is by continually being a part of the learning process. And ISTE is such a huge component of that process, and certainly breaking boundaries every day. And we really appreciate all the work that you do, because there's always something to fall on. There's always somewhere to go to really make sure that we're meeting those standards and we're on the right path. So we appreciate your guidance and support. And again, we'll have everything that you mentioned in our show notes. And we thank you so much for joining. We were really, really excited to get you here. And we're excited to share everything.
The ISTE Live.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And the dates. So the dates are
November 29th to December 5th. It's Sunday through Saturday, and there's options all day long, again, on demand and live. So there should be something for everyone.
Can I ask you a question too? Because it is digital and online, is there a reduced rate this year for people?
Yes.
So maybe more people can access it that couldn't go before?
Absolutely. The rate is reduced this year. The pricing is available on our website, on our conference website. There's different rates. If you're an ISTE member, you get a discount and a couple different options as well as we get closer and closer to the conference. Our hope is that not only this makes it more accessible to people, but also just being digital to educators around the world who may have been prohibited from traveling to certain areas that, hopefully it's open to them as well. So we're excited to get maybe a totally different group than we've ever had before at an ISTE conference.
Yes. Yeah.
So true. So true.
Very good.
Wonderful. Thank you again so much. We're so excited to share this, and we're so excited to again, get to that conference, all the different offerings that are going to be available. We're so excited to get that experience. It's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're excited too. And, ISTE is just constantly in awe of teachers and other educators and education leaders right now and everything that they're doing. And the world would not be going round right now without educators. And so we are appreciative and so grateful for everything that they're doing and then that they're sharing with us so that we know how we can better support.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Liz. It was a pleasure to visit with you today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.